The ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza is a glaring failure of international aid efforts, complicated by political interests, logistical hurdles, and the continued conflict between Israel and Hamas. And despite the substantial international involvement, the aid reaching Gaza, reaching Palestinians, is not only insufficient but also fraught with challenges that exacerbate the suffering of the population. European leaders, under increasing domestic pressure, have pushed Israel to allow the unrestricted flow of aid into Gaza. Some steps have been taken, such as the establishment of humanitarian pauses and airdrops, but these measures are only partial solutions. As the German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul has stated, these steps are a result of international pressure, not sudden altruism. And while these actions may temporarily alleviate the crisis, they fail to address the underlying issue, ending the 21-month-long war with Hamas. And without a comprehensive ceasefire agreement and the release of hostages, these humanitarian efforts remain ineffective, as pointed out by the former Israeli ambassador Daniel Sheck, who likened them to Tylenol for a cancer patient, suggesting that only a resolution to the conflict will provide a long-term relief needed. The logistical challenges are immense. Despite efforts by the World Food Programme, World Central Kitchen, and various UN agencies, aid delivery has been severely hampered. Only 12% of aid trucks reach their intended destinations because of Israeli-imposed blockades, looting, and security threats. And when they do get through, a lot of the aid is seized by Hamas rather than given to the civilian population. The result is an increasingly dire situation in Gaza, where nearly 200 deaths from starvation were reported as of July 2025, and famine was officially declared. Medical infrastructure is in tatters, with 94% of hospitals either damaged or destroyed, and the UN and international aid organizations are expected to improve aid distribution, but these organizations face mounting obstacles ranging from the militarization of aid sites to the lack of sufficient resources to treat the growing number of malnutrition cases. Israel's stance on aid is contentious. The Israeli government asserts that it's not restricting aid, but is concerned that it may fall into the hands of Hamas, thus undermining its military objectives. However, international critics, including Médecins Sans Frontières, have raised alarms about the militarized approach to aid distribution. They claim that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which operates under US and Israeli backing, has been the site of violent confrontations, with over 1,300 casualties reported in incidents near its distribution centers. This militarized aid distribution model, they argue, is tantamount to a politicization of humanitarian assistance, which is further complicated by accusations of looting and the diversion of aid by armed factions within Gaza. As the humanitarian crisis intensifies, international pressure on Israel has been mounting. And while Germany has refrained from joining France in recognizing a Palestinian state, it's also taken symbolic actions such as suspending new arms exports to Israel, a move aimed at addressing the growing discontent in Europe over Israel's military actions in Gaza. Moreover, other European nations are contemplating further measures, including downgrading diplomatic ties with Israel or re-examining the EU-Israel Association Agreement. The potential for sanctions, even from countries traditionally supportive of Israel, therefore, is becoming a real possibility if the situation continues to deteriorate. This international friction reflects a broader frustration with Israel's refusal to consider an exit strategy or to engage in meaningful negotiations for a ceasefire. And despite the significant international involvement, the aid mechanisms in place are failing to meet the scale of the crisis. The US government, while continuing to support the GHF, has faced criticism for its reliance on a militarized distribution system that prioritizes security over the immediate need of civilians. In contrast, organizations like the WFP and the WCK have made significant strides, delivering millions of meals and food shipments, but these efforts pale in comparison to the scale of the need, with the UN estimating that 62,000 tons of food are required monthly, far beyond the current capacity of international aid efforts. The current aid distribution system is mired in complexity, and the militarization of humanitarian efforts only exacerbates the crisis. What is needed is a neutral, coordinated, and effective response. And the politicization of aid efforts has done little to erase the suffering of Gaza's civilian population. A more effective solution would involve the restoration of UN-coordinated aid mechanisms where humanitarian assistance is provided independently of political agenda and military concerns. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza cannot be addressed without political resolution of the conflict. And while the international community's push for a ceasefire is essential, the failure to implement a long-term peace agreement means that the suffering of Gazans will continue. Humanitarian aid, as vital as it is, remains a temporary fix to a much larger and more intractable issue. Until international leaders prioritize diplomacy, therefore, ceasefire negotiations and the resolution of the hostilities between Israel and Hamas, the aid efforts will continue to fall short, and Gaza's population will bear the brunt of an escalating crisis.